Hello, I'm Graham Priest, and this is the second of a number of lectures that we are recording on Buddhism and science. In the last lecture, I told you a little bit about the history and the geography of the development of Buddhist thought in Asia, so that at least you have some sense of the fact that it's always been a living tradition with a development of ideas. I indicated briefly what some of those are. There are many others. But in this lecture, I want to give you an idea of some of the core teachings of Buddhism. So the different Buddhist schools disagree about many things, but there is certainly at least one thing that they agree on, and this is something called the Four Noble Truths. Now, don't get hung up on the word noble. It means something like ennobling. So, if you understand and practice these, then it makes you a better person. That's what noble means. And the Four Noble Truths were enunciated by the Buddha in his first sermon, if you want to call it that, after achieving enlightenment. So he attains enlightenment in Bodh Gaya and teaches in Sanath, which is about 100 miles away. And he lays down the core principles of Buddhist philosophy. And what I'll do in this talk is to tell you a little bit about what these are. So there are Four Noble Truths, so there are four of them, okay? And they're in the form of a sort of medical diagnosis. So you can think of it this way. There is an illness, there is a cause, there's a prognosis, and there's a treatment. Okay, so these are essentially the Four Noble Truths. So let me tell you a little bit about each of them. The first Noble Truth is that life is characterized by, and here there's a Sanskrit word called dukkha. Dukkha is usually translated as suffering, and that captures something of the sense, but its connotations are much, much wider than that. Dukkha is all the things that you really don't like in life. Suffering, pain, discontent, unsatisfactoriness, unhappiness, sorrow, affliction, anxiety, dissatisfaction, discomfort, anguish, stress, misery, frustration. These are all dukkha. And the first Noble Truth is that these things happen in life. Get used to it. Okay. Now, the Buddha wasn't an idiot. He knew that there were times of happiness and joy as well. But these things also have a downside, because when good things happen, they don't last forever. And when they finish, you feel the sorrow and the frustration of good things coming to an end. So things in life are characterized by dukkha. So in a sense, the human lot is not a happy one. Okay, so that's the first Noble Truth. Now, the second Noble Truth is that there's a cause. The cause is Trishna. Trishna is sometimes translated as craving, but again, that's not a good translation. Trishna is the mental attitude of attachment and aversion. So when bad things happen, you're averse to them, you want them to go away. When good things happen, you're attached to them and you want them to continue. So dukkha can be caused by all kinds of things. Train crashes, stock markets collapsing, the death of a child, you're losing your job, etc. These things are largely beyond your control. These things which happen in everybody's life. Everyone gets sick, everyone ages if they're lucky enough to do so, everyone dies. Okay, you can't affect these things. The one thing that you can affect is your mindset. Okay, so when these things happen, when you experience dukkha, it's because you are attached or averse to what's happening, and this is this mental attitude of attachment and aversion which causes you to suffer. Now, since this is the only thing that's actually under your control in this whole saga, then this is the one thing which you have to act upon in order to get rid of the dukkha. Now, sometimes see Buddhism as a pessimistic philosophy. I don't think it is that. It's certainly realist in a sense that says, hey, life is like this. But Buddhism is actually an optimistic philosophy, because it says, well, life is actually like this, but you can do something about it and you can get rid of the suffering. Okay, so the third noble truth is actually just a corollary of the first and second. So if the cause of dukkha is Trishna, your mental attitude, get rid of the Trishna and you get rid of the dukkha. Get rid of the cause, you get rid of the effect. So that's the third noble truth. And the fourth noble truth is a set of principles or advice, if you like, that you can implement in your life in such a way as to help you get rid of the Trishna. And this is called the Noble Eightfold Path, because there are essentially 8 steps. And I don't think anyone thinks that these are the only 8 bits of advice which will help you, but these are certainly standard. Okay, so they break up into 3 groups. The first one is usually classed as wisdom. That is right view, understand the world aright. Second is right intention. If you don't intend to do something about it, you're not going to go anywhere. So that's the first group, wisdom. The second is action. So these are things which would typically be thought of as moral principles in Western philosophy. Right speech, right action, right livelihood. So don't lie, don't steal, don't gain your living by exploiting other people, etc., etc. And then the third group concerns your mental state. So these are right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So you've got to be aware of what you're doing, where your mind is, if you want to have a hope of implementing some of these other things. If you're not aware of the world around you, not aware of your place in it, not aware of what your mind is doing, you've got no hope of bringing the other things to fruition. All right, now I'm not going to talk about the Eightfold Path in any detail, but let me just focus on the first of these, which is right view. Now, we have this attitude of attachment and aversion. And one reason why we have this attitude of attachment and aversion is that we do not understand the world in which we live. So this is so for at least 2 important reasons. First, the world of things in the causal flux of events is impermanent. Everything comes into existence when the cause of conditions are ripe and goes out of existence. And we forget this. We forget that, everything must pass. So, when you lose your job, when your child dies or whatever, your job was going to come to an end sooner or later. Everybody dies sooner or later. So you shouldn't fret. This is the view. When you lose something, because it was going to happen sooner or later anyway. It's inevitable. So that's understanding that the world is the world of impermanence. The second thing is that Trishna is attachment. What is the thing that you are most attached to? If you think about it for a moment and answer honestly, you'll answer, well, the thing I'm most attached to is myself. Okay. Now, another part of right view is that you don't understand yourself, you don't understand who you are. In a certain sense, you don't have a self, you're not a self. Now, what that means will not be clear at the moment, so we'll talk about that in a later lecture. But let me just recapitulate. The first step in the Eightfold Noble Path is right view. You have to understand the world in which you're living. That's a necessary condition for extinguishing Trishna. It's not sufficient by any means, but this is what thrusts Buddhist philosophy into prominence, because you have to understand the world in which you live. That's a necessary condition. So if we want to understand that world, this brings us to engage with philosophical issues. And we'll look at some of these, especially no self, in a later lecture. So what I've done in this lecture is to talk about the core of Buddhist thought as enunciated by the Buddha in his first sermon. These are the four noble truths. Life is an unhappy situation characterized by dukkha. Dukkha is caused by trishna. So, third noble truth, if you get rid of the trishna, you can get rid of dukkha. And then the fourth noble truth is a set of principles to help you to do that. Right view, right moral action, right understanding of your mind, where you are in the world, and so on. So I hope that these will give you at least enough understanding of the basics of Buddhist thought to follow a number of the topics that we're going to take up in subsequent lectures.